As we get older, our brain can start to have a little trouble using its main fuel. But what if there was a backup plan? Today, we're going to dive into the science of something called ketones, a potential second-chance fuel for the brain. And we're going to sort out the real science from the hype, especially around things like coconut oil.
So let's just start with this question right here. What happens if the fuel your brain has been running on your entire life just doesn't work as well anymore? Now, for millions of us, this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. It's a real challenge that can come with aging. And that really gets us to the heart of the problem we're going to unpack. It's this idea of a potential energy crisis happening right inside our own heads. Okay, so here's the scientific term for it: glucose hypometabolism. Think of your brain as this super high-performance engine, and it runs on sugar, glucose. But as we age, and particularly in diseases like Alzheimer's, parts of that engine start getting, well, less efficient. The fuel is there, the glucose is floating around, but the brain cells just can't seem to pull it in and use it properly. So, if the main fuel line is getting a bit clogged up, is there another way to get power to the engine? Well, that brings us to a really fascinating potential solution: finding a bypass fuel. And that bypass fuel is ketones. Now, what are they? When your body is running low on carbohydrates, maybe because you're fasting or on a specific diet, your liver gets this signal. It starts breaking down fat and turning it into these amazing little molecules called ketones. And it turns out they're a fantastic source of energy, especially for the brain. Now, we're not just talking about a little energy boost here. This is a big deal. When ketones are available in your bloodstream, they can supply up to 60% of your brain's total energy needs. I mean, that's a massive lifeline for those brain cells that were struggling to use glucose in the first place. This quote really just nails the concept perfectly. Imagine the main highway for glucose has all these traffic jams and slowdowns. Well, ketones open up this clear, efficient side road that goes directly to the brain cells that are starving for energy. It's just such an elegant workaround for a really complex biological problem. So the next logical question is, how do we get these ketones? Well, there are basically three main ways people try to do this. So the first way is the most natural one. It's what your body is designed to do. It's called endogenous production, which is a fancy way of saying your body makes them itself. Through things like fasting or serious carb restriction, you lower your insulin, and that's the trigger for your liver to start that whole fat to ketone conversion process. It's the body's built-in fuel switching mechanism. Now, the other two pathways involve eating specific types of fats, and this is so important, they are not the same. On one hand, you have MCT oil. This is a purified, concentrated oil of the exact fats that are super easy for your body to turn into ketones. On the other hand, you have regular virgin coconut oil. It's a natural mix of fats, but most of it is a type that is much, much harder for your body to convert. This difference is absolutely critical to understanding what the research says. Okay, so we've got our three methods: fasting, MCT oil, and coconut oil. Now for the really interesting part. Let's look at what the actual science says about how well each of these works for brain health.
This chart just lays it all out for us, and it's fantastic. You can see a really clear ranking right away. MCT oil comes out on top with the most promising evidence, even if it's still modest. Fasting is next. The idea makes a ton of sense, and we're starting to see some good data. And then there's virgin coconut oil way down at the bottom. The evidence is just plain weak.
Let's dig into MCT oil a little more. What we're seeing in multiple studies is that it can reliably raise ketone levels, and for some people, that translates into small but noticeable improvements in thinking and memory. The effect seems to be strongest in people who are already experiencing mild cognitive impairment. Okay, what about fasting? The theory behind it is rock solid, and some of the early human studies are really encouraging. They're linking practices like time-restricted eating to things like better memory. But, and this is a big but, we just don't have the long-term data yet to say for sure that it prevents or slows down dementia. The evidence is coming in, but it's not there yet. And finally, let's talk about virgin coconut oil, because this is where the popular hype really disconnects from the science. A major, high-quality clinical trial published in 2023 looked at its effects on Alzheimer's patients. And the result? After 24 weeks, there was no overall significant improvement in cognition compared to the group that got a placebo. None. And this quote from Alzheimer's Research UK really says it all. This is the scientific consensus. You might hear anecdotes, you might see small, poorly designed studies, but the major research organizations are all in agreement. Right now, there is simply no strong clinical evidence to recommend coconut oil for dementia. So after all that, what's the takeaway? How do we put this all together? If you're curious about this whole ketone thing for your brain, what's a smart and, more importantly, safe way to think about it? Okay, before we go one step further, I have to be crystal clear about this. What we're talking about here is the research. This is not medical advice. Any kind of big change to your diet, especially if you're an older adult or have any health conditions, is something you absolutely must talk to your doctor about first, period. And when you talk to them, here are some of the things you'll want to bring up. The oils can cause some, let's just say, digestive issues. Both strategies can mess with your cholesterol or blood sugar. And for older folks who might be a bit frail, there's a real danger of losing precious muscle mass. These are not things to take lightly. You know, this might be the single most important point of our whole discussion. Playing around with ketones should never, ever replace a fundamentally healthy diet. Your foundation, your home base, has to be a diet pattern with tons of evidence behind it, like the Mediterranean diet or the Mind diet. These have rock-solid science showing they reduce dementia risk. Think of ketones as a potential add-on, not the main show. So what does that solid foundation look like? Well, it's built on foods that are packed with things like omega-3s, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds. We're talking about fatty fish like salmon, colorful berries, dark leafy greens like spinach, nuts, and good quality olive oil. This is where the scientific evidence is the strongest, by far. So we'll leave you with this thought. The science behind ketones for brain health is genuinely exciting, and it's evolving. But it's not a magic bullet. So instead of chasing after one single miracle food or supplement, maybe the better question is this: what is one sustainable, evidence-backed change you could make for your long-term brain health, starting today? Because in the end, that's what's really going to make a difference. Thanks for joining me.